Hello, everyone, and welcome along to the TurfCast Podcast pre-game show ahead of our game tonight against Tottenham Hotspur. It's obviously going to be a very, very tough game for the Clarets. Not the start to this season that we all anticipated. We're all looking ahead to this season with a bit of joy after the way last season ended, but then no signings and anything like that, and not really any points until the game against West Brom. But obviously, like I said, we're playing Tottenham Hotspur tonight, and I'm delighted to say that I am joined by Jamie, who is from a very well-established Tottenham Hotspur podcast called The Last Word on Spurs. It's very, very good to have you on, Jamie. It's really, really a privilege.
No, thank you very much for having me. And yeah, I'm looking forward to this game tonight. I think it's going to be an interesting one. I think that Burnley are a side that Spurs always seem to struggle against, especially at Turf Moor. So, look, I mean, we're kind of a different team this year. I'm very excited, like how we're lining up and kind of the style we're playing with at the moment. So I'm very excited for tonight's game.
Yeah, it's one of them, innit, with Burnley and Tottenham. Like, you always seem to absolutely smash us down at White Hart Lane, or, well, the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, as it's called now. But every now and then we do dig out a result. Obviously, there was the Chris Wood game a couple of seasons ago when I actually didn't go to that one. It's one of the only ones I haven't been to. I was in Llandudno at the time. And it was like, we're at 92nd minute when Chris Wood got, I think it was his first goal for Burnley, actually, that one. Yeah. So it's one of them, the Burnley Tottenham one. How do Tottenham fans view these games? Because Burnley fans, well, I'll speak for myself, I always kind of dread them. But when I look back on them, I look back on them with a bit of some good memories, really. Obviously, we've got the Carling Cup semi-final, which it's bittersweet. It's a good memory and a bad memory at the same time for obvious reasons. There's the 4-2 on the last game of the season in 2010. Obviously, we beat you a couple of seasons ago. And then there's last season as well where, we're 1-1 in the end. But I think we were, if I remember rightly, the better side and we were pretty much robbed. I can't remember what exactly we were robbed for. We either should have had a penalty or you shouldn't. I can't remember. But there's some injustice about that game.
Yeah, it was. I think that was a really difficult game for Spurs last year. I remember it very clearly. I remember at half-time, Tongi and Ndombele and Ola Skip were dragged off at half-time, and Jose Mourinho after the game was absolutely furious with the performance. It was a very difficult one. I think that Spurs fans, when we come to Burnley and Turf Moor, I know you see on that Amazon documentary Jose Mourinho describing our players as being too nice, and I think when we go to these sort of places where teams are very physical. We always seem to struggle, and the last 2 years I think we've dropped points here. I remember 2 years ago Spurs looked as though we might be going on some sort of title challenge, but that was quickly halted by a defeat at Turf Moor. But yeah, it's been a difficult place for Spurs to go over the last, especially the last two games that we played there. So I'm expecting another tough game today. I know that obviously results haven't gone your way so far, but I think, as we said, Jose Mourinho pointed out, he was very complimentary of Burnley this week. So I think that I'm expecting a tough game tonight.
Fingers crossed, mate. Obviously, from our point of view, because some of the performances, should I say, that I've seen so far, we've not looked like ourselves. The West Brom game, it were a bit back to Burnley, but I don't want to sound disrespectful. But it was just West Brom. You know what I mean? We need to do that sort of performance against you boys tonight. If we put in a good performance tonight and look like Burnley of old, then I'll be a little bit more, optimistic about the season ahead. At the minute, I'm really, really pessimistic. But you just mentioned Jose's comments there, and I can't remember exactly what he said. I think he said they'll finish 8th, 9th or 10th in the Premier League this season. I mean, as a Burnley fan, and as I know pretty much everyone watching will agree with me, I don't think anybody's thinking we're going to finish 8th, 9th or 10th this season so far. So I want to ask you what you thought of Burnley season so far. I mean, I presume you haven't watched every single game, obviously, but especially last week's where you had to pay for it. even we didn't do that. We paid for it on a perfectly legal streaming stuff. But what's your thoughts on our season so far and how we've started? It's good to get your perspective on it.
Yeah, it's obviously it's not been quite the same. I don't think Burnley have been quite the same side that they have been, especially last year. I thought they were really impressive last year. I mean, Chris Woods and Ashley Barnes up front. I think that's obviously a really strong partnership. And tonight, I think that's certainly going to be an area where Spurs will have to be wary of. I know defensively Spurs are weak, so I think that Ashley Barnes and Chris Wood, when they get firing, that's when Burnley, I think, can be quite dangerous. But yeah, it's obviously been disappointing. I mean, defensively, you've not quite been as solid. I know Jose Mourinho will love that about Burnley, is that you do seem to be quite, defensively solid at times, and that's why you've been, you finished highly before, and it just hasn't quite been the same. But I feel as though I really like Sean Dyche. I think he's a solid British manager. He's a very good Premier League manager. And as I said, I do agree. I mean, 8th to 9th is probably a bit ambitious at this stage, given the way that you have started. But I do think Burnley are a decent side, especially under Sean Dyche. And I can genuinely see you start getting more results. Maybe when it's been a weird season. It has been a weird season so far. There's been some really odd results, and it's not quite gone the way it usually has. I mean, we've seen some crazy results. So I think that when things maybe settle down, that's when we might see a different Burnley side. But I think you should be optimistic for this season. I do.
Yeah, well, we just got our comment. A comment of James Smith, who's feeling a bit more the similar sort of way to me. It says, "Who are we kidding? This has 5-0 Spurs written all over it. I really hope not, but shrug emoji." It's one of them. I don't think we're going to get turned over. I'll be honest. I think it's going to be. I think we're going to go back to our normal selves and have a hard fought sort of game, and you might nick it personally. But we'll get more onto the game later on. I want to talk to you about your season so far as well, because I think you're 11th at the minute, aren't you? But you do have a game in hand, obviously, which is tonight's game.
Yeah.
Is it 11th?
I think we might be higher than that. But it's been a weird season because personally, I'm so pleased with how we started, just because of the performances. I think that off the back of last year, we finished. It was a very mixed end to the season under Jose Mourinho. But this year, I mean, the performances have been fantastic, and we've dropped points where it's just been so frustrating. The Newcastle game where we conceded a penalty in the 95th minute. The West Ham game where we conceded, I think we're the first Premier League side to concede to give away a 3-goal lead in the last 10 minutes. So, unfortunately, that's the way Spurs do it. But there's definitely weaknesses there in the defence. And, as much as I think that going forward, we are possibly one of the best sides in the league, I think weaknesses in defence are what's going to cost us. But look, we've made in terms of performances have been fantastic, but I think results have definitely been lacking so far.
What sort of like style do you play with these days then? Because obviously Jose Mourinho is one of them. He's got a reputation for being defensive, but as you've mentioned, you have got one of the best, if not some people might say the best attacking sort of like front three, front four. Now you've got Bale in the league. So like, how's that balance? Have you found that balance where Jose defends? Because he does defend. Well, he is a defensive minded manager, but he needs to release these sort of players also. Has he found that balance yet?
Yeah. I think when he's given the right tools, I think that's kind of what's missing. I think he said that word himself. I think he's missing that balance. He's trying to find the right balance between being attacking and being defensive, because at the moment we're still very vulnerable defensively. So I think at the moment he's trying to organise the defence. But look, the attack is just so good at the moment. And that West Ham game kind of perfectly sums up where we seem to be at the moment. So good going forward. You've got Harry Kane, who's on the form of his life. You've got Heung-min Son, who's absolutely incredible as well at the moment. I mean, you've got to put them as two of the best attackers in Europe at the moment, the form they've been producing. But as I say, to keep going back defensively, and especially in central defence, it just seems to be a bit of concern. Set pieces is where we are very weak. I think we've conceded, just 2 of the goals we've conceded haven't come from set plays. So that goes to show, I think that's set pieces is definitely an area where Spurs are vulnerable.
And that actually plays into our hands brilliantly, does it? Because that's where we're actually quite strong. So fingers crossed. I just want to quickly point out a comment here from Daniel Morehouse, who's from the Cricket Field End. If you haven't already, please go and check out the Cricket Field End. It's a question for you, Jamie. He does say, how do you feel after the game with West Ham going into this match? Because I brought this in now. We're going to talk about the game later, but you've just mentioned the West Ham game, and we've got to talk about that game. Obviously, I think it was the last game, weren't it? The last game that you played. And it was just, I don't like saying this because I know how much Spurs fans relate it, but it was a very typical Spurs performance, wasn't it? You've got that. I was working at the time and I checked the score. I'm like, 3-0, bloody hell, we're going to get absolutely murdered by Spurs here. And I didn't even bother checking it again. The day after I saw that it was 3-3, I was like, what's happened there? So talk to me about that game. What happened? Like, it was just weird, wasn't it?
Yeah, it started so quickly. Obviously, we went 3-0 up in about 20 minutes, and it just looked so incredible. I know Spurs fans were getting carried away themselves. We're thinking, oh my goodness, we're going to win the league here. But we just tried to kind of contain the match. That I know that Jose Mourinho, and we saw it against Man United, we didn't really look to go and win, 7-8-0. It was kind of, we got the goals and then we kind of tried to just frustrate them for long periods. And we gave West Ham a lot of times to kind of get back into the match. They had a lot of control in midfield. And when we made the changes, we made a couple of substitutions late on. I think Gareth Bale came on with about 20 minutes to go, and we made 3 other substitutions. It completely changed the complex of the game. I mean, we just looked so weak in midfield, and then defensively, we just looked a bit all over the shop. And once we conceded that first goal, I think there was a real nervousness that crept in. And once you kind of felt that first goal had gone in, because of the way the game was going, that West Ham were getting chances, that they were getting control of the ball, you could just feel as though they could go and quite easily go and score 2 more here. And as I said, it's worrying defensively at the moment, but I mean, the attack, if we can try and find that right balance, as we said, then Spurs can be a really strong team this year, because attacking wise, we're fantastic at the moment.
Talk to me about them weaknesses then, because obviously as a Burnley fan, we need to sort of like cling on to any little bit of hope going into this game. It's one of them. Yeah. Normally, the last couple of seasons, I'd be looking ahead to this game and thinking, we can do Spurs, we can do this. Like anyone coming to the turf, I'd be buzzing. I'm thinking, I don't care, we can do them. This season is a little bit of a different sort of vibe. This season, I'm a little bit more worried. So I am a little bit worried I might get, not murdered, but like I said, not necessarily turn over, but beat anyway. But talk to me about them weaknesses that you got then. Like what is wrong with Spurs at the back then? Like what are you doing wrong?
I think so. I mean, the big area is central defence. That's kind of, we haven't really been able to find kind of the right partnership at the moment, or someone that's been able to go and lead the defence. I mean, we were linked with Milan Skriniar in over the summer. Of course, the new central defender, that didn't quite happen. So the central defence has definitely been our weakness. But aerially, we are so vulnerable. As I said, the set pieces have been our big kind of downfall this year. We give away silly fouls. I remember the Everton foul was a silly foul when we lost 1-0, and it was a free kick into the box. There was, of course, the Newcastle game where we conceded that penalty late on, and it was a ball into the box. West Ham's last 2 goals were from balls into the box. So it's aerially, and I think that's where I do worry certainly against the Burnley side with the likes of Wood and the attackers that you have. I think that we are going to be in for a tricky game. So I think Burnley will frustrate Spurs this evening, and it'll be interesting to see how we break you down, because, as I said, I'm really, really excited about our attacking options this year, and maybe it might be different. Maybe we might come up against the Burnley side that will frustrate us, and we can break them down. But it's going to be very interesting. I'm intrigued to see what happens tonight.
It brings me on perfectly to the question that I've just had from James Smith. Don't worry, Mark, I'll get to your question in a minute. James Smith says, which player of ours do you feel is our biggest threat? He says treat, but I presume it means threat. Obviously, you've just spoken about the aerial sort of like weaknesses that you have. So surely the biggest threat's going to be like your Woody and your Barnes, who are quite good in the air.
I mean, Dwight McNeil's a guy that I've always liked as well. I think he's a good player. Is he available tonight?
Yeah, as far as I'm aware.
Yeah, so I think he's a talent for me. He's a very good, certainly young as well. So, I mean, Chris Woods, I think he's a guy that was actually linked with Spurs this year in the summer. But for me, he'll be definitely a guy that I think Spurs have got to look out for, because physically, he's going to be a big handful in the air. He's going to be a big handful. So, for me, I think it's Chris Woods is going to be the guy that Spurs are going to have to look out for tonight.
I mean, I love Chris Wood. He gets a lot of stick off Burnley fans because he's one of them players that's not very pretty to watch, but he does the job. And obviously, I think he scored 14 goals or whatever it is for the last 2 or 3 seasons. He's been our leading goal scorer anyway for the last 3 seasons. So people need to respect Chris Wood a bit more for me, to be honest. I absolutely love him, and I'll stick up for him every single day of the week. I had a question off Mark Higson again for you, Jamie. It says, what are Spurs fans' general thoughts on the management of Jose Mourinho?
Look, I think he very unfairly gets a lot of defensive, criticism about how he is defensively. I think that if you give him the right tools, then he can go and produce good football. I mean, it's he likes to kind of build a solid base and then try and build from there. And now he's kind of got options where he can go and produce attacking football. I think at Manchester United, he wasn't really backed. You've got to go and I think the key thing with Mourinho is you've got to give him the right tools. You've got to give him players that are going to go and fight for him and do everything. And Højbjerg's come in and done a fantastic job. And it just seems, everything just seems a lot more effective. There was criticism of Harry Kane and would he fit into a Jose Mourinho type team, but he only sees kind of his role in Jose Mourinho's side has only been enhanced because it's got the best out of him. He's been allowed to kind of have more of a freer role, and he's able to drop deep and control the game, and that's an area of his game where he's really improved and made us a much better side. We've got a guy who's coming in who can spray passes for Son, and then of course Bale coming into the team. So as I said, if you give Jose Mourinho the right tools, I think he can deliver a very good side. I mean, this week he pointed out his Real Madrid side. They scored like 120 goals in La Liga that year, and so it shows you that when he's got the options to go forward, when he's got the options to kind of keep an eye on the defence, you like Højbjerg sitting in front of the back four, then he can have then he'll have an attacking team. But so yeah, I think Spurs have gone and done a brilliant job over the summer. They've given him lots of really good tools. So I'm enjoying the football at the moment. I think it's been good, and I think we've scored 30 goals or so. So I think defensively, that criticism of him, he's a defensive coach. I think that's a bit unfair, in my opinion.
Yeah, I see Sean Dyche and Jose Mourinho as quite similar. Just obviously Jose Mourinho tends to get the bigger and better jobs. Not necessarily in the sense that they've achieved similar sort of things, because obviously they haven't. Just in the style, and if they are backed and have the similar sort of tools, then they will do a similar sort of job. Like you say, Mourinho, yes, he's a defensive-minded manager / coach, but if he's got a front three, he will get the ball there to them front three as quick as possible and then go from there. It's a similar sort of vibe with Dyche. People have a sort of a thing about Sean Dyche and how Burnley are just part of the bus. But I saw a stat today that Burnley have the sixth highest defensive line in the Premier League. And if you looked at how we played in the Championship, we didn't play like this at all. Obviously, it was a bit more expansive, a bit more fluid, a bit more going forward. So I kind of understand them frustrations, because Burnley get the same sort of thing. So I do totally get that. Obviously, you mentioned as well how he's been backed in recruitment and things like that. I want to talk to you about Gareth Bale as well, because it was meant to start against West Ham, or West Ham was meant to be the game where he would play first. And obviously it was, because he came off the bench. But how's he done so far? Because obviously he only played 30 minutes in that game, 20 minutes, but then he played against whoever you played on Thursday. I can't remember the name of them. Sorry. Yeah, that's it. Last. But how's he done so far then? And at the end of that, is he likely to feature tonight? Fingers crossed.
Yeah. Yes. So I think just to say that I don't think he'll start this evening. I think that at the moment he's kind of building up his fitness. He reminds me a bit of Harry Kane at the start of the season. I mean, against Everton, Harry Kane was a disaster. And I think for England as well, he was pretty shocking in the first couple of friendlies for England this year. But now he's got match fitness. It just shows you when a player is sharp and kind of got that, he's up to match fitness, then he can start delivering. And I think Gareth Bale against West Ham, he showed signs that he's got a lot of talent. Of course, he did that brilliant dribble through late on, but then he put it wide. And I think that for me, if he was kind of fit, if he was fit and he was match sharp, then he'd kind of be more effective. But I think at the moment he's working his way back into the team. I think that the options we have as well, we've got fantastic options now. That's something that Spurs have lacked in the past, where on the bench there's not been the great options to come off the bench, but now we have options to come off the bench. So he's got to come in and earn his place now. Yes, he's obviously a fantastic player, but I think it's going to take a bit of time, and I don't think he'll start this evening. I think he'll come and get some minutes tonight, but I can't see him starting. I think that he's just working up to match fitness, because I think he played 20 games for Real Madrid last year, and majority of them I doubt he even started. So, he hasn't played a lot of football. So for me, it's no surprise that he's going to take a while to kind of get up to the levels that we expect from him.
Yeah, I'm surprised it's that high. I didn't think it'd be as high as 20, to be honest, with everything that went on over there.
Yeah.
Obviously, that leads us on building into the game tonight. Then you've already said that you think that we're going to frustrate you and stuff like that, but hopefully you're hoping that in your case, that you'll be able to break us down and stuff. Obviously, fingers crossed, not on our end, but it's one of them. A lot of Burnley fans might be a little bit more pessimistic than that. But let's talk about what sort of because you mentioned you don't think Bale will be starting, but sort of talk me through what your predicted lineup will be. Obviously, we will know the actual lineup in half an hour, but what sort of lineup do you think Spurs are going to go with tonight?
Yeah, so I mean, one player we're missing is Eric Dyer, and Eric Dyer is a guy who Jose Mourinho really seems to like. And of course, I think he was definitely a big miss against West Ham. I mean, for me, he's been kind of on and off. I mean, he has some fantastic performances, but then sometimes he'll, we saw in the England game against Belgium, he'll have those moments in him where he'll give away a penalty or something silly. Yeah. But I think for Spurs, he's going to be a big miss tonight. I think he's touch and go at the moment, but I don't think he'll start. So interestingly, I think we'll see Ben Davies start again at centre-back. He's played there for Wales on the left side, and obviously he's a left-back naturally. So I think we'll see Ben Davies start as a central defender tonight. I think we'll see Toby Alderweireld to partner him, and then of course Reguilon, who's been a fantastic signing so far. We've got right back. We'll have. I think we'll see Sergio Aurier come in at right back, and he had a very good performance against Manchester United. Not so good against West Ham. So I mean, he's a guy to maybe target for Burnley. Højbjerg done a fantastic job. I think he'll form a midfield three with the likes of Ndombele and Sissoko. Now Ndombele would be a very interesting one, because this game was kind of it was definitely kind of where Spurs fans thought that this was the end of Tanguy Ndombele at Spurs, because Last year at Burnley, as I said, he was hauled off at half time. He had a disastrous performance. He looked just incredibly lazy. But this year, he's looked like the player that we thought we were signing, and he's been fantastic. So he's definitely going to be key for Spurs tonight. So that they'll certainly form a midfield three. And then I think we'll see. So it'll be Son, Kane. And then I think we'll see Bergwijn come into the team, and he's kind of been mixed form really. I mean, he wasn't so great against West Ham, but I think he's kind of working his way into the team. So I think it'll be a front three of, as I said, Son, Kane, and Bergwijn for Spurs.
Obviously, you've mentioned Son there. I said to you off air before the start of it, we will have a quick chat about Son's goal against Burnley last season. Through gritted teeth, obviously, for me. I mean, as a Burnley fan, I look at that. And yes, don't get me wrong, it's a good goal. But it's just as bad defending as it is a good goal. And it's one of the Spurs fans will obviously I'm looking at it through claret tinted glasses, of course I am. I think you'll look at it through Spurs tinted glasses, of course you will. So you're probably looking at it and thinking, oh, well, it's bad defending because he doesn't let them defend. But if that were me and he were running through on goal, I'd just take his leg. So many people had chances just to leg him up. It's obvious what's going to happen. So what do Spurs fans think of that goal? Because it's one that your admin on Twitter's is milked pretty much ever since the goal. And it's been put out again and again this week, hasn't it?
Yes, I think there is definitely a case for some poor defending, and you're right. I mean, that's the kind of the moment where you take a yellow card for the team, and that's sort of I think that's what Spurs are trying to work towards as well. Getting in those moments where we do moments to break up the game, and there I think that was definitely a moment to break up the game. Just take a yellow card, but I think it was a very good goal to kind of run that far. And then have the finish as well at the end. I mean, you could quite easily run through and then kind of, you've come so far, you're so tired, but he still tucked it away. I think there was definitely moments during that game where, during that run where there was some very, suspect defending, but I think it was genuinely a very, very good goal.
Put it this way: if Joey Barton were in the midfield, there is no way he'd have travelled that far without being tripped up. We'll get on to predictions in a minute. Keep your questions coming in. We've had another question from Daniel Morehouse from the Cricket Field End. He says, realistically, this again is a question for you, Jamie. Realistically, do you think the league title is possible this season, or more of a build momentum and try and push for that more in it next year? Because it's a bit of a weird league this year, isn't it? So it's one of them sort of like years. Like it's the same as the Leicester year when you had that chance. It's a similar sort. I can see that sort of chance maybe developing if Tottenham and City keep Liverpool and City keep tripping up.
Yeah, the door's open there for Spurs, I think, this year. As I said, I still think there's a big weakness in defence. So going forward, I mean, you've got to put us down as arguably the best attacking team in the league at the moment. I mean, with Kane, Son, and then, of course, Bale to come in, and then the midfielders behind them, there's definitely a chance. So I think that you can't ever count out Liverpool. You can't count out Man City. I mean, they could quite easily come into some sort of form. But I think for Spurs fans, I think it's at the moment, it's potentially too early to say that we're going to challenge for the title. But look, as you said, the door is definitely open. Van Dijk's missing for Liverpool. He's going to miss majority of the season, and that's going to significantly impact them. And of course, already they weren't quite the same team that they didn't look like the same team as they were last year. Man City, I mean, they're dropping some crazy points this year. But look, Spurs, we've got to go and prove it tonight, and we've got to go and get those 3 points. But as I said, I think defensively, it's going to be interesting to see how we manage that. I think the other big thing as well for Spurs is having Europa League football. I mean, I know Burnley obviously experienced that, and I think you had a fantastic year the year before you went into Europe. And there's kind of that burnout, and there's that managing of that competition. So Spurs have certainly got to be able to manage that, and that playing on Thursday and then again on Sunday. Yes, there's obviously, you can argue that it's the same Wednesday and Saturday, but I think that the Europa League will definitely have some sort of impact on our Premier League form. So I definitely think there's, we've got the talent in that squad to go and win the league, but I think it's difficult to say we'll do it this year. But the door's definitely open there for Spurs to put some sort of title challenge together this year.
It's one of them that win it with the Europa League and the Premier League. There seems to be more games in the Europa League. I'm sure someone will throw a stat at me and tell me that's completely wrong, but I'm sure there's more games in the Europa League than there is in the Champions League. But it's one of them for us. It were a case of Yeah, exactly. And obviously, you've got quite a big squad as well, so you can probably manage it a lot better than we did. But Jesus Christ, that season that we went in it, we started similar to what we've done this year. We've got no excuse this year other than COVID, really, and injuries, and the fact we didn't sign anyone, so quite a few injuries, excuses. But for us, it was just a case of we had. Who were it? We had Aberdeen. We played them before the season had even started. Then Southampton away. Then Aberdeen at home. Then someone else away. I think it was Fulham or at home. Then Olympiacos away. Then on. And it's like you say, it's burnout. And it's so fingers crossed you can manage it. Do you think your squad surely is big enough to manage the Europa League? I'd say so anyway.
Yeah, look, so I think this year, as I said, we've done a fantastic job in the transfer window. We've gone and signed, I think we signed 7 new players. And that's significant. We've got options off the bench now. We saw Carlos Vinicius, of course, the guy come in from Benfica last year. I think he scored like 20 goals and he got a lot of assists as well. So he came in and did a fantastic job on Thursday. And of course, that relieves the pressure on Harry Kane. So Harry Kane has had a week off now. And that's something that we haven't had before. We haven't had a natural replacement for Harry Kane. And of course, that's been very well documented. We've got 2 fantastic fullbacks on either side. We've got fantastic cover in midfield. And then, of course, you've got Son and Bale as our starting wingers potentially in long term, and then of course you've got the likes of Bergwijn, Lamela, and Lucas Moura to come into the team. And actually, that's the point. Actually, I think that Lamela is a guy. I completely slipped my mind when I was doing my predicted lineup. I think he'll be the guy that will actually. I'll replace him for Bergwijn. I think tonight's a perfect game for him. You saw him against Manchester United. He's kind of that guy who is very, very annoying. He's very physical. He gets in your face. So I think that we'll see him potentially start tonight. So there's definitely options there. So I do think there shouldn't be many excuses that the Europa League should affect us, because we've definitely got a very strong squad this year.
I was just about to quickly ask you your prediction, because we've hit the half an hour mark, so I was quickly going to ask you your predictions for the game, but we'll do that in a second. This is the last question that we're going to read out, everybody. It's from James Smith. He says, do you feel you have a good season this year and get to the Champions League to keep the services of Kane? So basically, do you need to get back into the Champions League or maybe win something to keep Kane?
Oh, 100% we've got to win something to keep Harry Kane. I mean, look, he's 27 now. He'll be 28 next summer. So he'll certainly be looking to add that, a trophy to his cabinet, because for him at 27, not won anything, it's really quite embarrassing. I mean, obviously that's our fault being Tottenham. But look, I think that certainly this year we've got to go and win something. And as I said, the squad there is so strong. So I think we can go and compete on multiple fronts this year. I think, of course, we're in the quarterfinals of the Carabao Cup. So even winning that would be a nice kind of start towards maybe winning more trophies. But yeah, we've definitely got to win a trophy this year. We've got to get back into the Champions League at least. I think all the top players, it's crazy watching Gareth Bale running around in the Europa League. So, we've got to definitely get back into the Champions League this year. And I do think we've got a squad to go and do it. I am very confident. I think that top 4 is a must for Spurs this year. But I think to keep Harry Kane, we've got to go and win something. And I think that's either got to be the Europa League or the Premier League.
I think for me, looking at your team and stuff, and the way you've been playing so far this season, and just the whole package, the manager you got as well, I can't see you not making the Champions League, to be honest. But just looking ahead to tonight, then everybody, if you are watching in the chat, please get your predictions in. We've hit the half an hour mark, so I'm going to start wrapping up now. I'm going to get you, Jamie, to quickly sort of like give me your prediction on how you think the game's going to go tonight, and then a score prediction. Don't worry, you can predict Spurs to win. I'm not one of them. You can't do that.
Yeah, as I said, I think it's going to be a tough game for Spurs. I think that Burnley are going to be a team that are going to frustrate Spurs tonight. They're definitely going to cause us problems in the air. I don't want to see us giving away silly fouls. I mean, it was crazy because we kind of made a point on it on Spurs the last weekend, and then of course we were watching during midweek, and we just counted the number of silly fouls we were giving away, and that's been a real thing for us. So hopefully we can kind of eliminate that. We can't be allowing balls into the box. We can't be allowing set pieces for Burnley, because, as I said, with your 2 strikers, they'll be able to punish us. So that's something that we've got a limit, and that's something that Burnley can definitely get at. But I look at kind of the form that Kane's in, the form that Son's in, and I am still I'm still quite confident that Spurs will go and win it. So I'm gonna go for a 3-1 Spurs win, but I think that's probably being hard. I think that's a bit harsh on Burnley because I think defensively you're gonna frustrate us tonight. I can see it.
It's one of them for me. I think I actually weirdly feel better talking to you because we've spoken about your weaknesses and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it's one of them. I actually weirdly feel better. It's one of them. Heart. I've always got to back Burnley, mainly because I know what we can do. We haven't done yet this season. If we were just dog shit and we'd not done anything for like the last 3 seasons, I'd be like, we'll get beat. But that's not us. We are a good side. We've just started poorly. We're a good side for what we are anyway. Obviously, we're never going to be competing with Spurs and stuff like that. But we are a good side. But we didn't finish 10th last season because we shit. We finished 10th last season because we're a good side. But the way we've started this season, it's just not good enough. We are not good enough so far this season. It's one of them, and we've got. And we've just got. I'm just laughing because I've just seen a comment of James Smith, which I'll bring in. Which I've put a few comments out already, but he's got 0-5. Unfortunately, can't see anything different. They will push McNeil and Gudmundsson too far back to cause a threat. All the rest of them are a bit more positive than that. But I'll just quickly put Jamie's in there as well. But for me, it's one of them. Like we've not been good enough this season. So I think I actually said 3-1 to Spurs on the podcast that I've just done this season. This week. But my head, it's one of them, like, I'm still kind of sort of like saying 1-1, but my head's saying, what am I on about? My head's saying 3-0 to Spurs, my heart's saying 1-1, but head's the most intelligent bit, isn't it? You know what I mean? So it's going to be one of them, innit? For me, it's one of them. I'm hoping I'm wrong, but I think it's going to be a tough one.
As I said, it's very interesting. I mean, you look at the West Ham game, as I said, it perfectly summed us up. You can get at our defence, definitely, for sure. As I said, in the air, we are so weak at the moment. So there's definitely something Burnley to get at, but going forward, we are fantastic at the moment. So it's going to be an interesting game tonight. I think it really will be. And I'm just excited to see Kane and Son again because we need to start getting results now. We're putting in the performances, so hopefully we can start getting the results now.
It's one of them. Fingers crossed. I'm hoping for a good performance. I think if we have a good performance and we look back to our best, but we just lose out, I'll take that. But anyway, Jamie, thank you very much for coming on TurfCast Podcast. I really appreciate it. Like I said, The Last Word on Spurs is a very well-established podcast. I kind of had a chance asking. I thought you guys were going to be far too busy with the amount of stuff that you do. There's daily content and things like that. So please go and check them out. If you like me, and I'm one of them. I'm a bit weird. I like podcasts and I like YouTube channels. So I kind of look at other teams' stuff and watch them regularly. So if you are a bit like me, then please go and check out The Last Word on Spurs. They are class, and they're the sort of like podcasts that I look to try and emulate because I think they are a very, very good sort of podcaster and things like that. So like I said, Jamie, thank you very much for coming on. If you aren't aware, we do have a watch along every single game. So we will be doing the watch along, which obviously starts tonight at 8 o'clock. Well, about 5-2, just before the kickoff. It'll be me, Simon, and maybe Johnny. I'm not sure on Johnny yet, so fingers crossed that Johnny's involved. And then after that, we are doing now a new show called The Fan Reaction, where I get your fans, obviously, to try and our fans to try and give a response to the game. All I want you to do, if you want to be involved, is just film yourself on your phone chatting about the game for 3 or 4, maybe 5 minutes, as long as you want, and then we will do a fan reaction. So like I said, Jamie, thank you very much for coming on, and please check out the watch along at 8 o'clock.